Okay, sticking with our theme of Spain and Portugal in Latin America, um, there was a potential here. You'll see Spain and Portugal up here on the Iberian Peninsula. There was a potential here for some conflict because as both these guys were exploring this part of the world, uh, there was a fear that they would go to war with each other. Now, the Pope doesn't want this to happen, so there's something called the Treaty of Tordesillas, and it is established in 1493. Now, of the first line, you'll see the first line running down here. This happened because a Portuguese ship rounding the coast of Africa came out here at Cape Verde and went way wide and actually bumped into Brazil on its way around the southern tip of Africa and claimed part of it. A year later, the final line, a later line is drawn, and you'll notice it's drawn here a little more that gives Portugal a greater share of Brazil. I mean, it will continue to claim into Brazil. And essentially, the Treaty of Tordesillas says the following. Everything east of the line, which will include this Brazil, and Africa and India and the spice trade, are all belonging to Portugal. All of these belong to Portugal. Everything west of the line belongs to Spain. Now, you got to admit, it's sort of a height of arrogance to claim that you two small nations are going to divide the world, but this is what they do. This is the agreement, and Spain will settle in large numbers, explore much of, and they'll claim much of southern United States, western United States, Central America, down here, all the way down the west coast, or most of the west coast of South America. And this is a major treaty. Portugal rather, will claim Africa and the Indian Ocean, and we'll try to make those claims stick without much success. Um, Next up, what was the plantation economy? Brazil, the first plantation economy. What was the first thing to come out of Brazil? These were dyewoods. Initially, they were only interested in dyewoods. But sugar, which you guys will remember from your Southernization article, uh, was first crystallized in India, has been brought to Europe and to the Mediterranean by the Arabs. Remember that in Southernization, it moves it over. It's part of the spreading of the culture of South Asia. Europeans develop a heavy taste for sugar, and as such, they want a lot of it, and it becomes a very profitable thing to make. But it requires slavery, and that's my second question there. Why does sugar require slavery? It's very labor intensive, and the encomienda system problems with dying natives cause them to want to bring in African slaves. African slaves, you remember from your African slavery reading, have the advantage of not dying from European diseases. They handle tropical climates much better than other than Europeans, and so they make good laborers. How was the Brazilian society administered during this time? At this point, you've got white plantation owners who dominate society. Slaves, as in all societies, are at the bottom, and there's a great variety in between. We'll look some more at that. We're talking about mulattoes, mestizos. You've got peninsulares. You've got Creoles. We'll talk a little bit more about those, and they're in your homework as well. It was also administered, staffed by lawyers, regional governors, and they left the ranches and schools to missionaries. Now, schools were run by the church, but the church also, in order to pay for its schools and to make money itself, would also run large ranches and sugar plantations itself. Then, after the sugar brings a lot of people over, Brazil will move into an age of gold. Okay, explorers into the interior of Africa discover gold in 1695. Now the Portuguese government quickly moves in to control this, but the impacts of this gold exploration upon Brazil is that the interior gets developed. The Europeans had stayed on the coast for the most part because that's where you could do the trading and it was easy to do plantations there. They had really ignored the interior of Brazil, but now the interior will start to be developed. They'll put some plantations in there. They'll start to try to develop some cities. And Rio de Janeiro is made the new capital as it was closer to the mines. They moved the capital of Brazil to Rio. Okay, we'll stop. We got one more section to go.